So welcome. This is the April 4th meetup of the PCR Coast Division, and tonight our main focus is going to be on modeling on the coast. This is for kind of everyone in the PCR. We've got a lot of different modelers tonight and great participation. We'll talk a little bit about some upcoming events before that, and then we'll get right into it. So some very quick things about upcoming events. Next weekend on the 11th is our Roaring Camp trip. I think we were talking about this earlier. We got 4 or 5 people signed up for the train trip. Sign up so we know how many folks are coming. The more we can get, we can go together as a group. You'll also be able to come early and watch the steam up where they steam up the locomotives. Last time they did this, they steamed up both the Shea and the Heisler. Then we'll have a shop tour. The CCC, the Central California Central Coast ON30 modular layout, which you can see there on the bottom left. They'll be set up in the large event center. And then in the afternoon, we're going to have some layout tours, and I've got to close on those actually today, and they'll be publicized early next week. So go ahead and plan on coming down for that if you'd like. It's great. Get over the hill. It's not that bad. It's actually easier than going to the beach. The PCR convention is April 30th to May 3rd. That's going to be in Rohnert Park. There's some really cool layouts of ground view. There's going to be some great clinics. There's some great actually prototype events. You can go to the Sturgeon's Mills Sawmill. There are some prototype railroad events. It's going to be a great convention. It's a great location kind of up there in the middle of that Marin wine country area. And finally, the next coast
Mendocino.
Mendocino. And finally, the next coast auction, and I actually did not get this corrected either. This is going to be June 21st. It turns out that the senior center actually had a conflict on the 14th, so we had to change to June 21st. So I apologize for that, but that will be the date of the auction on the 21st. And finally, the national convention is July 27th to August 2nd in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Lots of interesting things to see and do in Chattanooga. I'll put something up on the PCRgroups.io and see who else is going, and maybe we can figure out if people want to get together when they get there. So with that, that's really all we had in terms of intro. Let's jump right into modeling on the coast. And so, next time we will do this in a reverse order. I thought about doing that this time, but I decided I wouldn't. So you know what that means is Dave Adams is first. Dave always was that kid sitting in the first seat in the first row, right, Dave?
Right.
Okay, go ahead, and we will let you go talk through your slides here. Here we go.
Okay. Yeah. So this is I ended up buying an SP C30-1 caboose kit in quarter-inch scale some 10, 15 years ago at an O Scale West show. And it's sat in my kit collection for years, and I finally decided I needed to do something about it. It turns out the kit is a laser cut plywood kit and etched brass. And so the frame is made up of etched brass. So this all came as flat sheets, except for the brake cylinder there that I had to purchase separately. And all the rivets needed to be punched. Everything had to be folded up and then soldered together. So this is the net result of that. This is the frame ready to be bead blasted and then painted. And then it'll fit into a wooden underframe under the car. Anyway, this was an interesting exercise in soldering. I did the entire thing using soldering tweezers. Yeah, you can change slides. Okay, so this is the wood part of the kit. What you're looking at here is the floor and part of the subframe sticking out from the end there. But otherwise, the kit basically came with pre-cut interior for a C30-1 caboose, which is kind of neat. The hole you see is up toward the top in one of the bench seats. That's so a double A or a triple A battery, the surface of it can extend up through that, and the battery will be hidden with a seat cushion. And the purpose of the battery is to light some marker lights that I picked up years ago that I just thought were too neat not to use on this model. Okay, next slide, Phil. Yeah, this is another picture of the interior. You can see all the doors and the cabinets and things have been scribed. Uh, I had to buy Tony Thompson's book on SP cabooses in order to figure out what else goes in here. So I've got that, and I've been acquiring all the materials to do that. So this will have pretty much a complete interior. The interesting thing about this particular kit is the walls are made up of three thin pieces of plywood. The center wall basically has, you really can't see them in the photo, but slots on the top of it. So your window sash drops down in this into the center of the window with the scribe sheathing on either side of it. So I'm really going to be interested to see how this builds up. I've got the window framing on the inside, but I don't have it applied on the outside yet. Next slide. And this is kind of overall what it looks like. The roof is again plywood, and it's held into shape by a whole bunch of laser cut roof formers. And what you see sticking up in the center here to support the roof walk are tabs on all of these arches that were cut. The other ends of the arches are what extends through those little holes along the edge of the roof and locks it in place. So this is to the extent of where I am on the project, and it's been a lot of fun so far. And I look forward to finishing it up and putting it on the display shelf because I don't have any quarter-inch scale standard gauge track to run things on.
Hey, Dave, a question for you.
Yeah.
If the windows drop down, with that center piece of plywood, how do you get the windows in the caboose?
Oh, um, they have to go in before you put the roof on.
Okay.
Yeah, so they'll drop in the slot there, and that'll be kind of the next to last step. The last step will be putting the roof on. The roof was made to be removable, but my build wasn't good enough to actually have that work out. So I'm gonna permanently glue it on after I've got the windows in.
Yeah, because you want to paint it before you put in the windows.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. That's the next step. At this point, I've actually painted the interior, and then that'll all be mask off, and then I'll start painting the exterior.
If you permanently mount that roof, how are you going to change your battery?
Ah, so I modified the kit. I put blocks of wood on all those seat boxes and things, so I can lift the whole thing off the frame
Okay,
and turn it upside down and pull the battery up from the bottom, if you will.
gotcha. Beautiful.
Very nice.
Very nice. It's amazing how the laser cutting, what you can do. The idea of having the crossbars for inside or when you take the roof off, and then using those to extend up through the roof for the
Yeah,
steps
yep,
is very interesting. And after you cover the roof and figure out how you're going to, paper it, which I guess would probably be an interesting
so
kind of
so the
job.
kit provided a laser cut paper overlay to take care of the canvas on the roof. So
Wow.
I'll be putting that down with wet paint and carefully working it over all the roof locks and things of this sort.
So it's got all those pre-cut for where the roof things come through.
Yes, it does.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's pretty good.
it's
Who
a
made whose skit was this?
the kit was produced by Mullet River Models, and they produced a lot of kits in quarter inch scale, and they've all been exceptional. And this one I just happened to bite on because I liked SPC 30-1 cabooses. So, but yeah, he folded up his business several years ago, saying he wanted to concentrate on building models for himself rather than kits for other people for a while. Yeah, he used to be a
Anyway,
regular at O Scale West. Yeah.
excellent. Excellent. Any other questions for Dave? Okay, well, we're going to jump up next to Ken Adams.
All right.
So Ken was right next to Dave there in the seats in the front row. Go ahead,
Oh
Ken.
boy,
It's
I've got to find
all
my script.
up to
Um,
you. So
let's
you had some
see.
cars you wanted to talk about.
Yeah. Well, okay. Let's just talk about the cars. This is a set of HO cars that I acquired in March Well, actually, three of them in March. One of them had been in my to-do pile for about 2 years. The three on the left are design, and this is where I needed the script. Phil, do you have it by any chance?
Oh, shoot. No, I don't.
Think those are DP
Oh
design
boy, hold on a
preservation
second.
models.
Hang on,
Tim.
I will go find it here.
Yeah, I gotta find the script. I'm terrible about this.
Meeting is
Yeah.
being recorded.
Okay, here I am.
Okay, good. You got it. Excellent.
If I can get around Zoom. Okay. After six. Okay, now there we go. Okay. I apologize. I caught myself flat-footed. I was looking for my hearing aid all this morning, and I didn't have time to get this ready. Okay. Am I still there?
You're still there. We're looking at the four cars, the
Okay.
color picture of the four
All
cars.
right. Let me just get this because this is I apologize, please. I
You want to
really
come
do
back?
apologize.
Do you want to come back? Do you want me to come back to you? I can come back to you
Oh,
after I do mine. It'll
where
give you
are
time.
you? There we are. Um, okay. Okay, from Showcase Miniatures. That's what it is. All right. Showcase Miniatures, the three on the left. The first is a 1940 Ford coupe, then a 1948 to 52 Willys, and then the third one, and that's also in cherry red, is another 1940 Ford pickup truck, and finally the black object on the right is a 1938 Plymouth from a company called Toys in the Attic, and these were are all 3D prints, and it's really fun to sort of do them. They all come as like two-part. Let's see if I can go to the next slide. Okay, they see how they come as two-part prints.
Mm-hmm.
You have the interior, including the wheels, and then the body shell. This is when I was priming them. And you can see sort of at the back my other recent obsession, an M46 tank. In fact, I've got four of them now.
Now, these are all HO scale,
These
right?
are just what's been on my workbench for
No, but they're all
the last couple of weeks. Okay,
they're all HO.
they're all HO.
Yeah. Cool.
Oh, and by the way, on the windows, here to finally show you where I'm sort of have a car mania with my layout. This is the Port Costa layout, and it's designed to show something in mid-morning on a weekday when all of the SP employees for the Roundhouse and the Freight House and all Sand House, everything are at work. And so all of these cars really form parking lot around the layout. And I guess that's about it.
What are you painting your models with?
Acrylics. I first the primer coat is Tamiya fine gray, and then I spray on, and then after that it's acrylics. Now, if you go back to the slide previous to this, you'll see this is actually on a piece of cardboard that I used to spray the primer on. Then after that, I actually paint the cars with acrylic paints. And the secret I found to getting a little bit of shine on it, I just rip it with a finger after it's dry. Let's see. Oh, the other thing is I was using micro scale crystal clear for the windows in these.
Okay.
And I just found that my bottle had suddenly turned to a clear blob in the bottle of hard, almost plastic. And now I've got to find another bottle of crystal clear. I've tried using cockpit cement for windows, and it doesn't really work too well. Okay.
Any other questions for Ken? Okay, we're gonna jump on then. And next up is me. So I actually have a bunch of slides here because I'm going through a project right now, and I thought it was might be kind of interesting for folks. So I will do this probably after the convention. I actually did a clinic at O-Scale West about what I'm doing of basically bringing. Hang on, we got some feedback here. All right, there we go. So I mute people because if I don't mute you, sometimes we get some feedback. So how I'm putting my modules, which are the dark green blocks here, in with some fixed modules into what was a game room to have a layout at home. I'm not going to talk about that today, but one of the things I realized is that if I'm going to do this, and if you looked where on the previous slide where it's in blue are the number of spots in each of those areas. So I have quite a few spots, actually 59. You know, if I figure somewhere around 65% fill, that's 40 cars, figure about 10 cars in the yard, some staging trains. I get up to where I need 75 to 80 cars. Nothing like a reasonable sized HO layout, or even especially a large HO layout. When I go over to Jim Radke's or Seth Newman's, and you kind of look at the size and the number of cars you have to support that, it's significantly larger to an order of magnitude. But basically at the bottom is kind of what I see as the breakout of cars, with 16 beat cars, some box cars, flat cars. The ones that are in white are ones where I have the cars already. They may need to be lettered and weathered, but I have the cars. The ones that are in yellow are ones where I have to make them. Those are all going to be 3D printed. I'll show you that in a second. And the 6 in red are box cars, which I either have to figure out how to make or buy the kit from Banta or find the ones from Bachman. So first I'll talk about the ore cars. So these are the ore cars that were used on the Barrow Valley Consolidated Railroad. They were built initially batched by the Carter brothers, then by a couple other manufacturers. So this is what I decided I would try to replicate at some level. This is actually what I built. This was some pictures taken before the final painting. I'll show you the final in a second. These are actually all 3D printed. They're printed on a filament printer. All the pieces are printed individually. Then they're all painted individually. The deck is actually wood. Hang on just a second. Do a mute there. The deck is actually wood. And then the parts just assembled together with a wire to hold the doors on. So this was kind of a picture of how it looked before it was painted. This is actually after I decaled it and went through a coat of dull coat. And then I washed it with alcohol with India ink in it. and that actually gives you that white look, which it actually hazes the dull coat gets hazed by alcohol, but then when you spray it with an overcoat of dull coat, again, the hazing goes away. And I find that's really a good background to put chalk on too, because you can actually see it fairly well. So this is the decal Richard Brennan did for me. It's cut really close and then put in with a couple of drops of microset to make sure it really folds in. But again, this is all 3D printed. These are just wires for the rods underneath. And so this is some pictures of it after it's had the final set of dull coat on it. So this was actually my prototype. I need to put the brake gear on this. I need to put some rust on the rods here, but pretty much I think it came out pretty reasonably well for a kind of a completely scratch built car. And I need to do, like I said, 15 more of them. So this is a great way to do it and make them. The other thing I've been doing is started with flat cars. So again, with the decals Richard had made for me, I went and lettered a bunch of my flat cars. These were all the decks on these are all hand painted. I didn't worry too much about how they looked like this because my intent is to put loads on most of these, which breaks up the deck board. So they don't have to be perfect. They just have to look good on the sides. So one of the things I do with the wheels is I cut strips of good masking tape and then wrap all the wheels around the riding surface on the wheels. And this lets me essentially paint the wheels without having to worry about getting paint on the riding edge, which we'll get on later on the track work, because you just peel this off when you get all done and you're ready to essentially put them on the layout. What I do is I take blocks of those and I screw them onto some wood I have. I just drilled holes and use simple drywall screws. These are 1-inch drywall screws, and they hold them in. And that way, when you paint them, allows you to roll the wheels around and make sure you get them painted on all sides. I spray them first with black. You can see this is where they've been sprayed with black. I'm actually, the next batch I'm going to do, I'm going to try the earth brown. I think that may actually be a better undercoat color than the black, but one or the other. I use the Doc Browns. I don't know if you have the Doc Browns. You can buy these online. It's a rust pigment. What I find is after you open it up, it dries out and you have kind of like this dry dust. But if you spray a little alcohol in a cup, wet your brush, stick it in the dry dust, and then bring it back over to the cup, you now have a cup that has alcohol in it. It will dry out after you use it and leave it overnight. Just hit it with some alcohol and it re-comes up. And now you have a combination of bright rust up above and dark weathered rust here to the left. And you can just basically put that on the wheel sets. And so this is what they look like after they've been done with the wheel sets and then sprayed with dull coat to make sure you seal it. So essentially, this is what they look like. And I think I put a little bit of chalk on them as well. So this is kind of the tops of the box car of the flat cars. And then they've been weathered, you're seeing here. So one of the things I also did, again, having the 3D printer advantage to it is you can make tools. And so these are essentially tools to hold a Bachmann ON30 flat car while it's being painted and weathered. So basically, it's just designed to essentially clip onto the cars with the standard places you put on the trucks. What it does is allows you to do two things. You can pick the car up by this with your hand. I have a bunch of those food service gloves. So if I want to paint like a coat of dull coat, I can just pick these up and hold them and spray the dull coat on. I get a little bit on those food service gloves, but I don't get any on my hands. And I actually keep my hands completely off of the car. This is, by the way, probably half hour, maybe 20-minute job in FreeCAD to actually design that little thing and then print it out. So this is what the tops of the cars look like after they've been weathered. I tried to do the weathering, so I weathered the edges of the cars on the assumption that most of the time when they were out in the weather, they would have a load in the center. So the center would look less weathered than the outside. But that's kind of, and you can kind of see they're all standing on the stands. So the wheel sets are all being processed separately. And so this is kind of what they look like when they get done. That was a gondola. I bought some gondolas and I'm going to do the same with them. I need to, the next time I'm going to try doing a little bit of notching of the wood on the top to make it look like it's got some age. Anyway, and this has been on my one of my modules. So the last thing is, the Bachman has some South Pacific Coast because the modular railroad I'm building, my built-in railroad, my concept is it interexchanges with the South Pacific Coast, which is still a narrow gauge in the time frame that I'm modeling. One of the things they do is they have these cars. The one in the back is 128. They have a 428 and a 128. The 428, as you can see, is a box car. The 128 is a ventilated box car. What I've done is I bought these typically at train shows, and what I'm doing is I'm taking the 128 and making it into a 126 and a 123. You can see this one's 423 over here. So what that allows me to do is take two of these cars that are for the South Pacific Coast and pre-lettered by them, and turn it into 6 cars on my layout for operations purposes. And these are kind of what those look like after they've been weathered. I'm going for not a heavily weathered look, but something that doesn't look like it's clear and glossy and has some level of rust on the metal on it, etc., because it's close to the ocean. And then I put one last picture up. I'm actually getting some progress on things because I've now migrated to a new workspace. This is in the modular layout room. You can kind of see the modules and the fixed modules here. And this is now my workspace. You can see some box cars in progress, etc. So that's kind of it. Any questions, comments, critiques?
I like your stance to hold the flat cars.
Thanks. Yeah, no, I think that's a great way. And they take about an hour and a half to print, but it's kind of the printer sits there most of the time doing nothing, so it's not really a big deal to get them printed, and the material is nothing.
Yeah, it's a great idea, and I like that it stands up too. It's not just a handle; it's a stand.
Yep.
I like how you painted the trucks. So, something for everybody.
Yep. No, the truck. What I like doing is just doing a whole bunch of them at once. It's just the turns out with trucks, the process steps, each one takes an amount of time, but it's more the setup in that than the actual time of doing it. I mean, the thing that's really cool is if you get a nice flat brush, bigger diameter, flat sided brush, you can dip it in the rust, and then just you make the rust up fairly dilute, and then just hit things, and it just gets rust on them, and it's fairly random, which is what you kind of want. So,
Ed, you're modeling HO or ON30?
It's ON30. Yeah, it's essentially the Pajaro Valley. It's the Pajaro Valley, and that's what the clinic that I did on this that talks about is it's the Pajaro Valley in probably about 1918 to 1923, that kind of time frame. And so, what this is these dark green blocks here are actually removable modules. Those 3 will all actually be at the event we're doing down in Roaring Camp.
Oh, okay.
I'll take them down on Thursday next week. I'll take these all out and get them in a trailer along with a couple of other modules. And so the idea is I was trying to do this so I had those, because otherwise I have to store them. Right? The problem with big modules is it's a double-edged sword, right? You have to store them if you're not using them. So, and I just don't have the room to store them. So doing them as the train room. So this basically kind of envisions the Pajaro Valley from Watsonville down around through Sierra City, which really is incongruous because it's actually more of a Sierra town, but I didn't want to throw the module away. And then Wilder Ranch, which is just north of Santa Cruz, kind of juxtaposition. And then Pajaro, which is a town kind of between Watsonville and Moss Landing. And then Moss Landing, this is kind of a re-envisioning of Moss Landing as actually having a harbor in the teens and early 20s. And then what I'm doing is the other end of the layout is staging, and that's a train turntable. and then I've got a siding that's going to go into a closet here. This is a fairly big walk-in closet. My intent is to take a track and run in there and have that be staging to Santa Cruz, which is the South Pacific coast. So the idea is I have a couple of trains staged here. I can have a couple of trains staged on the turntable. And then what I'm looking to do is build this so I can have a staging cartridge and have a couple of trains staged in cartridges that'll store underneath the turntable in the cabinet there. Right now, I don't have the turntable. I just have a couple of sidings here for staging, and I have a couple of sidings here for staging. I haven't built this yet, and I haven't built this. The clinic I went through is about building these two and kind of putting everything together and how it works. So like I said, I'll do that on one of these Saturday things, but I'm going to do it after the convention. It's just easier that way.
Quick question. Those 3 green modules that you have there that you're going to be taking, is that part of a club layout as well?
That's part of the California Central Coast.
Okay.
Which is the ON30. It's an ON30 modular group that's kind of in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
I call it kind of in the South Bay, but kind of really everywhere. We have members from Concord, all the way down to south of San Jose. So yeah, it's going to set up. That was that picture I showed. You go up here. Let me go ahead. The beauty of this is I have all the slides here, so I can pop them back up. Yeah, if you look the picture there in the middle bottom left,
yeah,
that's actually the layout that was done, I think, last year. The picture I actually took primarily because of the guy on the bike with the kids. I thought that was so Santa Cruz. But basically that's kind of what the layout looked like last year.
Okay. As far as that modular group goes, I hope I'm not taking up too much time here,
No.
but is there an ability for someone like me to get involved with that club? Because I've got some ON30 stuff and I wanted to build a module.
Absolutely. I put my email in the text.
Yeah.
But I'll do it again. I think it's still there, but if it's not, I'll put it in there again.
Okay.
And that way you can just send me an email and I'll put you in contact. It'd be great to have you participate.
Awesome. Thank you.
By the way, that is, half of the value, and I say that not blithely. I mean, we talk about why you want to be the benefits of being an NMRA member, and we talk about those 4 things, right? Learning, be inspired, make friends, save money. Well, maybe these kind of things save you a little money because maybe you decide you don't want to do something. But in terms of those other 2, the making friends, making contacts is a huge part of the value here. So that's good. I mean, if somebody wants to talk to somebody else about something, absolutely. You can use the chat to exchange emails, either, generally or directly. So I'm going to close real quickly with just a comment. I did this because our next speaker is Michael Eldridge, and I don't know if Michael's here. If not, I'll go through his slides. But he actually talked about the build along he has coming up at the convention. So if you are interested, you can. I think it's $17 is the price to register. But basically, you can build this SP feeder shed. I'm going to build it. It's about a 2.5-hour build. We'll go through. This is the HO version I built, and we'll go through the process steps that I used to build it. It turns out pretty cool. It's a nice little structure, line side structure. That'll be Thursday from 7 to 9:30. We'll hopefully finish by 9:30, maybe a little after 9:30 when we finish. And you can register on the convention website. And with that, I'm going to throw it away from me and see if Michael is here and have him talk about what he's doing.
Yeah,
so, Michael, are you here? Oh, he is.
I am here. Yeah.
There he is.
So you can show the next slide. So last year at the PCR convention, oh wow, I don't need that. Yeah. So last year at the convention, somebody offered a make and take clinic, and they had a N scale, HO, and O scale building kit, and about 3 weeks before the convention or something like that, they had more O-scale modelers signed up than they had O-scale models, and they were not able to get enough O-scale models by the time of the convention. So I stupidly said, I manufacture kits, so why don't I make a kit in all those scales, and then we'll know that we can have enough because I can just go cut them on the laser at the last minute. So I went looking for a structure that would be simple, so it could be built in close to the 3 hours that they give me, uh, but also would have a lot of different things going on. So I found this structure. It's an E.L. Moore drawing, if you remember those from various model magazines of cotton gin, but it obviously could be other industries. And it had a brick boiler house and then the wooden structure. And you can see on the right that it's got board and batten. So I I thought it was the criteria were that it was supposed to be kind of educational because it's a make and take clinic, and that it would have a kind of reasonable structure that you could use. So this is what I came up with. So I the board and batten is by cutting a laser board for the batten, so it's adhesive backed, the peel and stick, and so it's a piece of MDF, and then you peel and stick the battens on top of it, and the main structure is obviously just scribed wood. They're all built out of MDF. This is the HO model. And then the brick, I hadn't done this before, but I cut the brick on the laser also. And I learned how to make corrugated roofing with the laser. So it's got all those textures, some 3D printed parts. I don't know. I didn't realize how you guys did this my first time at this meeting, but if I could show something with my camera, you could probably see a little better here that the lighting's making this bad, but I get this oriented right. I have this painting method which is really quick. You can't really see what it looks like very well, but you can see that it's like the paint is failing. So it's not peeling, but it's just kind of failing, like it's faded away or something. But that's the O scale version, by the way, if you're curious about the scale of things. And is HO. Someday there will be an N scale one. So yeah, so that's also they put the make and take Thursday morning. So not that many people have signed up. I don't know how many people arrive at the convention Thursday morning. So I charged $40 because there's a lot of kit there and a lot of laser time. But yeah, it'd be great if you guys. Oh yeah, Denny just added the S scale and O scale last week, so I could make a TT scale one. I could make a 1/32 scale. It doesn't matter. So, but anyway, that's I'll be doing that. Oh, it looks like they gave me 3.5 hours. Maybe we'll be able to get the roof on. So that's my kit for the convention.
You have a long time. Mine runs till 9:30. I think I may end up telling people you have to run a little over it. See, it turns out trying to get things done, and one of the things I try to do is some dry brushing techniques to create that kind of weathered effect you get on the walls of the lighting.
Yeah.
And it takes some time to do stuff and do it right. So
Yeah, and I gave a clinic last year with paper building, and it took me about 45 minutes to build one. So I thought that the 2.5 hours would be enough for the clinic, but it wasn't. So I figure you got to have
well,
at least 3 times as long as it takes me to build it.
I
So,
would say I'd say if this looks daunting, the one in the evening is going to be easier because
yeah.
it's a smaller structure, so it's easier to do.
Phil,
But
it's Frank. We have a problem. I just looked at the schedule. I'd already been scheduled for Thursday night from 7 to 9:30, and I don't know if Denny or if who
I think
changed,
I think we moved it. I think we're both doing both of them at the same time, maybe.
but we only have one room.
Oh, okay. We'll have to talk to him and see then. Well, so it may move. It originally was in the afternoon. Maybe we'll move it back to the afternoon then.
Okay.
I don't have a problem with that actually. I'll talk to Denny
Yeah.
and those guys and see.
I think it was, the guy in charge of clinics.
Yep. Okay.
Hey,
No big deal.
Michael, I got a question for you. How corrugated is your corrugated roofing?
It's pretty much the same as the northeastern stuff. It's rounded, both the peaks and the valleys are rounded. So it's actually a pretty good method.
Yeah, I was wondering how good you could do it with the laser.
Yeah, it's I'm not sure. I have a Glowforge laser, which is kind of a premium laser,
Hmm.
and I'm not sure how it would work with other, there's like one Chinese laser that everybody uses, even though it comes under 30 different brand names. But yeah, the Glowforge is a kind of high end. I think it's close to $4,000 now. So it does gradient engraving.
Okay,
So
cool.
so I don't know. I think if can you enlarge the picture, Phil?
Yeah, I did as best I can. This is kind of all I get.
You can sort of see if you look at the front edge. Uh, you want to pull it over so I can see the corrugated roof
Hang on. That's
on the brick structure.
On the brick
on the brick
shed.
structure. Hang on, the brick structure.
So
Okay,
you can
yep.
you can sort of see on the
I'm sorry,
front
I was on the
edge.
wrong one.
Yeah, it looks kind of rounded. Cool.
Yeah, it's very
So
good. It's a very good
hang on.
method.
Hang on. Let me see if I can do this.
Yeah, that looks good.
Is that a CO2
Yeah.
laser that you've got
Uh,
or
I'm not
diode?
sh No, it's CO2. It's a 40 watt
Okay.
laser. Yeah, you can see how rounded they are.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
And the bricks, I didn't mention the bricks interlock at the corners. Uh, that corner, the one that's sort of toward the camera, I didn't line them up well, but the bricks interlock, so there's no well, I don't know how to explain it, but so you're seeing so where there should be the half brick, you're seeing the edge of the other sheet, the other wall. So that's the badly aligned one, but uh
Sorry.
yeah,
We should see
no,
what you're trying to. You're doing the interlocking there, and then the
yeah,
roof
yeah.
is.
Yeah, you can definitely see the corrugation in that. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Michael,
Yeah.
I'm actually signed up for your clinic. Are you going to send out a list of tools to bring?
Yes. Yes, I wasn't sure when and how to do that, so I'll talk to Denny about that. But typically, I only ask people to bring a cutting mat and a modeling knife, and then I bring other tools because a lot of tools are like emery boards and stuff like that. So uh, I figured out that because this structure is fairly basic, you don't need very many tools. Usually, I end up with, you start the project with your table empty, and by the time you finish, your garage is empty because all the tools are on the table. But this is I used very few tools, so a couple paint brushes, which I'll provide, and uh, yeah. So usually it's just a cutting mat and the knife
Okay.
and whatever optical aid you need.
Uh, I'll bring my 3 power glasses.
Yeah, yeah.
Any other questions before we continue on? Okay. Well, with that in mind, our next speaker is Bob Gardine, and he's going to talk about tiny rails. Bob, are you here?
Yeah,
I, I
Yeah,
saw him
you
here.
muted me. You muted me. So
Yeah, I
yeah,
muted
so
everybody.
I decided to re-engage in a passion that I had when I was in high school, which is N narrow gauge. So because the railroad that I want to model, the North Pacific Coast Railroad, uses stub switches and three-way stub switches. And because commercial flex track that I could get is only down to code 55, which doesn't really look good for N scale narrow gauge, I decided that I would start with the project to see if I could hand lay code 40 track. Because if I couldn't hand lay code 40 track that I liked, it wasn't worthwhile to invest money in locomotives and rolling stock. So basically, this is some of the photographs that I'm using to document building an oval of code 40 track. So the first thing I decided to do was to build a jig using plywood and 20 thousandths thick styrene. Originally, I thought about building my jig with aluminum, and I know if I had a 3D printer, I could print a jig. But my early concerns about using styrene near a soldering iron never materialized into any damage to the jigs, because generally you're more concerned the printed circuit board tie sticks up about 10 or 15 thousandths, and you're really pretty ginger with the ties because you don't want to overheat them and delaminate them. So I bought the ties from the 2mm Association out of England, which is an excellent source of N-gauge scratch building supplies. You have to join them in order to ship because of tariff rules out of England, not US tariff stuff, but English tariff and shipping means that if you're part of a club, then you are exempt from all the shipping requirements. So I bought these are pre-gapped N scale cross gauge ties in the frame with some code 40 rail next to it. So next slide. So I also built I decided that my minimum radius for N narrow gauge was going to be 9 inches. The locomotive that I want to scratch build is an 066 Mason. And after talking to some of my colleagues in N narrow gauge, I decided that a 9-inch radius would be the right thing. So I made a trammel out of aluminum. You can see in the upper left inset. Basically, measured holes and drew a set of parallel lines, and then used those to marked off track centers or tie centers every 3/4 of an inch around the periphery. It gave me about 40 or so ties, laid the ones out radially first, and then with a tie in between as I placed them, then put in the end caps. And so I had a jig. This took me an afternoon to build, including the trammel. I reused the trammel to cut the curved roadbed after I'm done. And then in the bottom lower image, you can see the bag of pre-gapped N scale ties. So you want next slide, please?
Hey, Bob, can I ask a question before you go on? Did you
Yeah.
build a transition into this in the jig?
No, I didn't build a transition into the jig at all. It's just a radius into a straight at the
The
end.
pure radius straight into the straight. Okay, that's
Yeah.
great. Thanks.
Good idea, Phil. Next time I do a jig, I'll remember that. So I had a theory about how to deal with soldering. Talked to a lot of the guys on my NN3 club. It's a group IO ranging from Hawaii to England. And a lot of the guys use solder paste, but I don't have solder paste, and I have solder, so I ended up cutting solder into tiny balls. But what I would do with the ties is burnish them gently with 400 grit sandpaper, and then slather some water based flux, water soluble flux, profusely on the ties. Then I'd put a tiny solder ball on the tie, and then as I lay the rail down on top of it, I would touch the soldering iron to both sides. There you go on that. To both sides of the tie with gauges in place. So when I finished soldering the rails, I ended up with a set of rails and printed circuit board ties spaced every 3/4 of an inch, like you can see on the bottom left. And then I basically took them into my sink and carefully washed them with soap and water and a dedicated modeling toothbrush. I assure my wife that to remove all the water soluble flux from the bottom of the rail. One thing to note is that this is weathered rail. I basically clamped, don't have a photograph of it, but I clamped it in a modeling vise and sanded the bottom of the rail with 150 grit emery cloth, sliding the rail through the vise forward as I cleaned each inch of the rail. And after I finished cleaning all of the weathering from the bottom of the rail, I wiped the rail clean with isopropyl alcohol and a paper towel. Then I slathered the bottom of the rail with the same water-soluble flux to keep it from oxidizing while I continued to do my prep work. So I basically was placing a rail that already had flux along the bottom of it onto pre-fluxed, pre-balled ties. Then I would touch the soldering iron to the side where the ball was, and then quickly touch it to the other side of the rail, and I would draw the solder under the rail. So I went through a lot of input from my NN3 modeling guys on what to do. This ends up being actually very quick. Go to the next slide. So I ended up pretty quickly with track ready for ties. Next slide. So I basically would solder rails onto the center of every rail and then apply ties with cyanoacrylate. So the ties are 1/16 by 1/32 basswood stained with India ink and isopropyl alcohol, cut with a Northwest short line chopper, and then glued in place. And then after I glue them in place, I take a brush and brush along all the edges of the ties. I don't dip the ties back in alcohol. I know they're clean wood at the ends. I just glue them on and then I touch them up all along the ends after I'm done. Next slide. So I use the same trammel to cut roadbed. So my thought is the track is too fragile to manipulate. I want to be able to, I'm not putting this on foam. I'm basically going to extend my roadbed up on risers because I expect to have some elevation in my layout. So I'm using 1/4-inch hardwood plywood from the back of a cabinet. When I run out of this, I'm going to go find some more hardwood plywood. I like how this works. I basically use a trammel, and you can see there's a short straight section at the end of each curve. So I'm not trying to end my pre-built curve directly at the end of my radius. I'm going about another 3/4 of an inch or so straight. This is so that I can actually get the rails straight. 'Cause if I try to end in a curve, it's really hard to get the rails perpendicular to where I want them to be. So if I go straight another inch, that really helps me keep the rails aligned. So I'm basically aligning two straight tracks with each other when I align a curved section and a straight section also on its own pre-built piece of wood. So I basically cut out the hardwood with the plywood with a saber saw. I file down the edge of it. So some of the lines that I'm making with the trammel include a bevel line. So I have a pair of lines that shows where the track actually gets glued down, and then an 1/8 inch out from that I have a bevel line, and then an 1/8 inch out from that I have the edge of the wood. So I use my wood rasp to bevel down to the bevel line at a 45-degree angle, and then I can bring my foam or whatever scenery material up, and I have what looks like a little bit of a roadbed. North Pacific Coast Railway had very, very little roadbed. It looked like it was laid on dirt with dirt in between it, but every once in a while, in the city areas, but every once in a while it looked like there was actual roadbed. So for places where there's roadbed, this is both the substrate that's going to hold the track up with risers, as well as making my track somewhat sectional so I can reuse large sections of hand laid track. I think I have one more slide, or maybe this is it. So a little bit of a detail, so you can a little more of a detail shot on the lower left about what the track looks like. I still haven't treated the printed circuit board ties and the solder on top, but you can see that the solder is wicked cleanly on both sides of the rail with very little encroachment into what would be the flange area. So this is a very low. So I basically cut the solder balls small, put them on the outside, and then wick them to the inside. And that gets me a very low profile on the inside where I care about it. And then you can see the one piece of rolling stock that I have. So I decided that I was going to go light on investing on rolling stock and locomotives until I proved that I could build the track I wanted to build. So I'm probably about a week away from having a working oval. I do have a piece of a locomotive. I'm just going to hold this up here. This is a Rokuhan Shorty. It's going to be a box cab diesel. It costs $21, not including shipping out of Japan or wherever. So it costs about $32. So I'm going to put some couplers on that and a little 3D printed box cab diesel shell on it, and I'm going to run that on my oval. And then, having done this, I'm highly confident that I'm going to be able to do my stub and three-way stub switches because I found so far that this was working as I expected with a little bit of learning curve. So after I get my stub switches together, I'm going to start working on my North Pacific Coast layout, which I've already designed, but we'll save that for another day. So that's about what I wanted to talk about. My goal was to take photographs and to get started to write a magazine article, with the goal being if you were mechanically inclined and good with the soldering iron and basic tools, could you hand lay an oval in NN3? And I'm going to do a step by step. How could you hand lay an oval in NN3 and get started? Because when I looked at the Code 55 rail, they said, oh, when you do scenery, it pretty much looks the same. And I looked at it and I thought, nope. There's something about the low profile Code 40 that really looks good to me. In fact, some of the modelers in England use drawn wire Code 30, and it doesn't even have a railhead profile. It's just drawn wire, and it looks extraordinarily good. But that's really small, and I decided that since I can get Code 40 rail, that's what I'm going to do. So that's what I got. Any questions?
We had a comment, Bob. Where are you located?
Oakland, California.
Oakland. So are you familiar with McBeath Hardware on Ashby Avenue in Berkeley?
Yes, I have actually bought wood there once before. Yes.
Yeah, they have some very nice birch plywood in a variety of thicknesses. That's actually amazingly inexpensive compared to, buying regular plywood at, say, Ashby Lumber.
Yeah, I've tried a bunch of different substrates. I tried using Luan plywood, the 1/8 inch plywood, and it worked great on the short piece of straight track. Oh, it was perfect because I had the grain going this way. But with a curved piece, you end up having the grain going perpendicular to the narrow part, and the grain started flaking out of the Luan when I cut it with the saber saw. And so I realized that although Luan is what NN3 modelers use for roadbed, I don't know what they're doing with curves, and they're certainly not cutting curves that are thin like this. So when I started I just used this because I had it. This is an exercise in use what you have, and let's not buy a whole lot of stuff until I'm convinced that the scale is going to work for me. And this hardwood plywood is fantastic as a roadbed material. So, any other comments or questions? You're muted, Mossy.
There we go. If you're up in Sonoma County for the convention, there's a place here called Mount Storm Lumber, and they have every kind of hardwood plywood that you want, um, all the way up to exotic hardwoods if you want. Um, so just food for thought.
Yeah, McBeath on Ashby has exotic hardwoods too. I've been
Okay.
in there. I bought rosewood from there before,
Yeah.
for example. So
Now, what are you going to make your bully boy out of?
I'm going to make it out of um, a Markland Z Scale 060 that
Uh-huh.
I'm going to remotor back to. I'm going to remove the armature and the windings from the motor, which is vertically mounted, and put a worm gear there and run a horizontal shaft back to a can motor in the tender area of the Mason boogie. So it's like a Mason. So there's a,
Yeah.
there's a pretty big tender in the back. They burned wood at the time, so the huge wood stack in the back can hide the rest of a can motor. So I already have it sort of figured out in my mind. There's a specific Markland 060 that has the right size wheel diameter and spacing, because there are a ton of different Markland Z-scale locomotives and they don't all have the right wheel diameter for what I want. So I need to find a specific 060 locomotive and then take that apart and remotor it.
Are you going to have the main engine set rotate like a Mason bogie would as well, or are you going to have it hard mounted?
I don't know when I'm going to be able to, probably not have it rotate, because that's probably more than I can ask for modifying out of the Markland Z scale. But that would be more like scratch building the frame.
Yeah.
It's an interesting thing, but one of the things I've noticed about the NN3 guys is they're even the very best of them are practical, and there are places where they go, we like the crosshead detail on the simpler Markland motors isn't quite as accurate, but it's reliable, and I don't have operational problems. So it not only works, it looks okay, but it runs really well. So there's a lot more compromise between looks and operation to get these small locomotives to run well. In fact, one of the reasons why I need to start with an oval is you can't run Z-scale mechanisms without breaking them in extensively. In ON30, for example, you can buy a Bachmann locomotive out of a box, hook it up to a DDC decoder, it'll run a quarter of a scale mile an hour.
Yeah.
So Bob, I'm going to go ahead and cut you guys off. Why don't we do that as a clinic, and we'll do it as a clinic sometime in the future when you do the locomotive. It's after 10 already, so I know folks have other things. So let's jump on. We're going to jump on to Earl, and Earl is going to talk about water tank bans.
Ooh,
So
cool.
Earl, you are up.
So I've got kind of a tooling presentation thing. So next slide, Phil. So I'm working on this fine scale kit, and you can see on top that, one of the signature things is this water tank. And typically you just wrap string around a dowel and that gives you the bands. So next slides. And, this is the instructions from the kit. And in the lower left, you see this hoop guide where you mark around the tank the height of the bands and then wrap thread around that. And when I did the first band, I thought I had the thread drawn tight, and it wasn't. It was kind of loose and it moved all over the place. And the more I thought about it, there had to be a better way to go ahead and do bands. So I went down to the garage, and next slide, Phil. Went on the drill press and drilled a hole in the middle of my water tank. And then I put together a fixture. And you can see this in here. And the thought is I can wrap string around the tank and then turn the handle, and it'll wrap and it'll stay at a certain height off the ends. The two big pieces of 1x4 are through holes. The little piece of plywood scabbed on the right end is a solid piece. If you don't have something to register everything against and you just turn the handle, then the tank is going to move one thread pitch to the left or the right as you kind of roll up the thread. So I wanted to make sure that the thread was going to meet the end from where I started. So next slide, Phil. I did kind of a test. I just wrapped a piece of paper around the tank, put it on there with some tape, and then rolled it up. And you can see when I rolled it up that it met the thread that was already there perfectly. So I thought this would be a good go. So next slide, Phil. The other thing that I did with the thread is I took glue between my fingers and kind of ran it down the thread. The idea being that it, number one, stiffens up the thread so it doesn't move so much. It makes it look a little bit more like metal because you don't have the fuzziness of the thread. And it also glues itself to the tank. So as you roll it up, and I had a pair of hemostats on the end of the thread to give me some counterweight, and it pulls tight against the cylinder and it glues the thread to the cylinder. So I would, glue one in and then start another thread, a couple detents over. So next slide, Phil. So this is what it looks like kind of at the end with all the bands on there. And they all look like metal. They're all glued on, they're solid, and they're not moving up and down. So I was pretty happy with this. So that's my little fixture for the day. Back to you, Phil.
Any questions for Earl?
That fixture was very cool, Earl.
Thank you.
Did you pre-paint the thread and pre-rust it and that before you did this?
No, it's rust colored thread, so it looks okay. Just doing the glue, wiping the glue on with my fingers really helped to stiffen it up and glue it to the tank so it doesn't move.
And what kind of glue did you use?
Just Elmer's glue.
Just white glue. Okay.
Just white glue.
Cool. It's a great idea. It's that's always a very vexing thing to do, to put those wires on. I like the idea. It's a simple fixture and it makes it easy. Any other questions? Well, with that, we will jump on to Patrick. Patrick, I have a misspelling there. I apologize for that.
Let me unmute myself. Okay, I'm here. Oh no, wait a sec. Hold on. No. I think I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I've done a winery. And here is the pictures of the my structure is designed under the M2 winery in Lodi. And this is the interior and sort of the position of the outside of the two pictures. So I wanted to show you what I'm modeling. Next one. And this is the outside of it. Now, M2 in the back of the building, they have done a really large decal or M2 on the back of the wall. And since the wall will not be seen from it, I added this little sign, both sides. I made the own decal. I'm naming it the Temescal Valley Winery. I live in Temescal Valley in Southern California, so it is something that I wanted to do and have a sign about it. Can't really see very good on that, but at least a sign. Interior, you can see that at the back of the bar area, there's a shelf unit. There's a shelf unit on the side. I've done the barrels. There is a bartender there. I have hanging lights. The stuff above the bar was all hand laid. Let's see what else. I'm having a little bit of, there's some more interior. What I still have to add is a few more people. I wasn't real happy with the way I put the wine bottles or the bottles. I got to still add that. Add a few more people. The hanging lights were very similar to it. The ceiling, which I don't think I gave you a picture of, I'm not sure, was all hand laid. So underneath is all hand laid. There it is. They're all hand laid. I've got to add a couple more lights that are not hanging but are stuck to the side. I've got to add a couple more flags. I wanted to wait for that because in the prototype there are hanging flags. They got damaged before when I kept taking the top off, so I've left it off for now. What I'm having trouble with is putting the styrene on. Now the styrene is on both sides of the wood. I do have to cut a few of these out better, but I'm having trouble having it stick, and I'm not sure if I should just do it on one side or I should do it on both because the styrene is on both. The slide, they do slide. I have to do a little bit better job of, sometimes they're stuck with it, but they are on both sides. I'm just having trouble getting the styrene. No, normally when I put styrene in a building, it's on the back, so it's not really as critical as it is when you can see it so obvious. Having trouble finding out which kind of glue it would be best.
Why is there styrene on the outside too?
Because that's what the actually in the model or in the actual thing is they have glass on both sides. So I was trying to model it, and maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I'm trying to do.
I think just leave it on the inside. I think it'd look better.
Okay.
Yeah,
That would be
unless you can
fine.
put
Then
it
I will do.
shrimpy. Yeah, I think that'd look better personally. Very nice. I really like it. Now this is HO scale, right?
This is HO scale, correct?
Yeah.
So I will add a few more. I tried to get somebody to make me some wine glasses. She did, but she said it didn't work out right. So it's too small. It didn't really work out. She didn't like it, so I won't do that. Oh, I'll have a couple. The wine bottles are probably going to try and paint a few of them amber. I don't like them just clear. And I'm going to add, like I said, I'm going to add a few more people. So only do the inside. Now, remember the other side, the styrene will be on the inside. So just do it on the inside. Is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah, that would be my suggestion.
Okay.
Hey, Patrick, for your wine bottles, if you go on the Sierra West website, he has 3D printed Coke bottles. I think they're Coke bottles or something in clear in both HO and O. So maybe for an inside thing, like an O scale Coke bottle would look like an HO scale wine bottle.
Oh, the wine bottles I've got, it's the wine glasses.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And I haven't been able to find them. And I've got cocktail glasses, or the little ones, the small ones, which I'll use instead, because there are some wineries that will use those instead of actual wine glasses. So that's probably what I'm going to use. But I tried to do wine glasses, but it didn't work.
Yeah, the stem in HO is microscopic in diameter.
That's for sure. And that's what I have.
Okay, well, we will go ahead and move on then. So let's see, we'll go to the roof. And that is it. Actually, that brings us to the end of Modeling on the Coast for this week. Our next one will be May 30th, combination of the convention and other things. That's kind of the next good date. So we'll plan on May 30th, and hopefully everyone can present that. So with that, we will kind of close out our meetup for Modeling on the Coast. That will be over for the week. Thanks everyone for participating, and we will we'll continue on with a normal if we want to coast meetup. If anyone wants to throw anything else in, thanks everyone. That was great. I think that was a very cool session on modeling. We had a lot of interesting things. I hope everybody, either learned something or was entertained. Let's put it that way. And I won't mute you now. I was muting you during that because if I don't spotlight the person and you're not muted and you cough, what happens, it'll flip over to you and back, and that's what'll be on the video when it goes up to YouTube. And you'll look startled. So I'm actually protecting you.
Phil, I got a question for you. Um, how do you treat where your modules come together in terms of uh, are they clamped together somehow? Or
So I use the same standard the club uses, which is a 24-inch by 6-inch plate, and 6 inches in from the sides and 4 inches down from the railhead on your module. You put a hole, so there are two holes, and we just basically bolt through those, and you just line them up. What I'm doing is actually, because the modules generally on either side of them are going into a fixed module. The way it works now, for example, the 4-foot module that's by the door, there are basically rails on the fixed modules that hold it in height and then hold it in depth. So what I do is I just slide it on there, then I throw in a couple of dowels that pin it in place, and then I bolt it, and it takes me about 2 minutes to put it into place. So, when you do it at a show, it's all random which module connects to which module. So what we do is we laser level everything now. We set up a laser level, and we've got a box that's got a height on it. And we basically what we do is
Way to go, guys.
we set the module up to the laser level. And you only have to do it on one end, right? So you set a module up and level it. Then you bring the next module up and you level it to the module that's there and level the tracks. Then you level the other end of that module and just continue on. And it goes fairly quick. The only downside is you got to get down to the floor and turn the leveling jack. And it turns out, it seems like that gets exponentially harder every year to get down to the floor and get back up.
I can identify with that.
So yeah, it's anyway. But yeah, if you're, on the 11th, if you're not, the reality is there are two things to do on the 11th. One is very crowdy, and one is not. You can go up to Sacramento to Roseville and see 4014 on the 11th that parked at Roseville. Did that last time it was there. If you haven't done it and you haven't ever seen it, it's probably worth going and seeing it. It is just a huge crowd of people. And then the other option is drive down to Santa Cruz and check out the Roaring Camp folks and the layout there, and whatever we have open as open houses. And of course, what you can also do is on the 8th, you know that 4014 will be in Portola at the museum on the 8th. So if you really want to go see 4014, the thing to do is to drive up on the 7th, spend the night somewhere in Reno or Portola, and then go see the 4014 on the 8th in Portola. And then, of course, if you're really crazy, on the 9th, you can follow it through the Feather River Canyon with 1,000 of your best friends and 400 cars trying to park in the 30 parking spaces there are at the KDY. I mean, if you've been there, you know what I'm talking about. It's going to be semi-insane. Yeah, the only way to do it is to have like 4 cars and coordinate it, where what you do is there are 3 people in one car, and somebody takes the car and parks it in a parking lot ahead, and you drive by and drop people off at that car, and then go ahead and park at the next spot and bring people around and drop them off, because you won't be able to find a parking spot in there. You have to figure out some way to stage it, or just go camp out at one location, because I mean, you think about all those locations, there aren't that many parking spots. So I mean, it's a fun place to go when you're by yourself, but not when you're with 400 other cars trying to chase a single train. I'm not trying
I'm
to
leaving it
dissuade.
to John Apatola.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and that's the other thing is, it's really cool to see it, but the video you take is not going to be as good as the professional videos you can see on YouTube. I mean,
Yeah.
the only thing I found worthwhile, and this was, why I
My
commented
only
on
other
this.
comment is it's sacrilege to have a UP engine.
Well, but it's UP promoting itself. I mean, and of course this year it's their promotion of the idea of doing the merger so it can be a coast to coast railroad. So,
Yeah. Oh well, proves you can buy your way.
yep. Well, I think that's all I had for today. I think, we're hitting a little after 10, almost 10:30. That's probably good. This was a great modeling on the coast. Everybody start, take pictures. Like I said, biggest thing you can do is when you sit down to start modeling, set the timer on your phone for 5 minutes. And every time it goes off, do two things. Click the snooze button, or I think it's called repeat on an iPhone for the timer. So you get a 5 minute, it's going to come on in 5 minutes later, and then turn your phone over and take a picture of what you're doing on your model. And that way you'll have all those pictures you need. Because it's fun to do this, and it's fun to just talk about techniques. And I think you always learn something. I sure learned something, and I sure like Michael's laser printed corrugated roofing. I have to look at that one and see. Um,
Phil, I'm going to add my original script to the Coast Division groups.io.
okay.
Yeah, that way I've
So
been looking for my hearing aid this morning and I just didn't get prepared.
it's okay. It's okay. When I
Okay.
do the edit for going on YouTube, I'll edit out a lot of you looking around. It'll be much shorter. I'll try to remember to do that.
That's why I'm
Okay.
putting an extended
Get rid of
version
the startled
on the
look.
website.
Yeah.
Okay. Take care, guys.
Anyway, yeah. So if you haven't signed up for next weekend for the 11th, sign up for it. Come on down. You're just going to come down and go. You're not going to ride the train. You don't need to, but make sure you buy your tickets. I will send an email out to because I can send an email out to everybody, and I'll talk to them about
I need
making
to
sure
figure out how to do this. Get out of
we have an identified car to get in so we can go together. I'm hoping there'll be 8 or 10 of us that'll go on the train ride. Um, anyway, with that, I think we're going to close it off, and everybody have a great week. We'll see you either next week on the 11th or the week after that here on the weekly meetup. So thanks again, folks. Bye, everyone.